this is so exciting. I'm going to do a little intro before, like of course, I'll record one about everything that you are. But yeah, first off, one thing that I wanted to ask you about is I've heard this new term on TikTok and social media about multi-potentate, multi-passionate. And I feel like you're the epitome of a multi-passionate person. I mean, business, acting, yoga, poet, fitness, probably many things I don't know about. When you were growing up, did your parents, did your family say you have to choose, or were you told I can do many things?
No, I guess I was very blessed to have that, like, it was like a clear table and I could just choose as what I liked. I think I got that. I mean, my dad's quite multi-talented and so is my mom. But my mom's done a lot of different things in her life. From filming to being an athlete, to being a model, to being I think definitely I took the best of both worlds, I'd say, from both my parents. And I'd say growing up, look, I mean, growing up, my brother was from a very young age wanting to be a movie director, which was very, very, very unknown in the UAE as an Emirati child. So, and they were supportive of that. And then obviously I then followed through wanting to get into being a football player, which is much more common. But I'm very happy and blessed to say that, we were given that freedom of choice to do what we love to do, so long as it doesn't really conflict with, our morals and our beliefs. And most importantly, you're not doing something that harms anybody, first and foremost. So.
And this is a huge question, but what did you learn from your football career? What are the biggest lessons you took?
Discipline, first and foremost, of course. Discipline definitely is, as a football player, you have to be there day in, day out. Basically you have no life but football. So your life becomes the game, which I was fortunate to experience because I loved football. It was my life. I think it teaches you also a bit about being naive. So I think, sometimes, you can sit there as a football player because you focus on the pitch. The football is also a business and you have to work, and pull the right strings outside of the football pitch through getting a football agent or whatever it may be. So I think I learned a lot about being naive. So I was very like, okay, I get on the field, I perform well, I work hard, I'll get a spot. But it doesn't necessarily work like that. You have to also have the right connections, use the right agents, have the right approach, the right strategy, as you do in everything else in life. So I think it taught me that. Definitely, I mean, teamwork. When you watch your players, make your teammates, make mistakes, or they get sent off, or they have an injury and they're down, you support them and they support you, and that feeling of, that bond of a team, it really does help. And now obviously through, whatever relationship you have in your life, whether it's your family, friends, or at work, it does add to that. But yeah, for me, I think the most thing I took out of football was the drive to succeed, no matter what the consequence was. I went through a lot of hurdles and injuries and situations where I was like, there was a brick wall in front of me, but I kept knocking, until, it was, time to put my gloves up, basically. But I did get to experience the beautiful game. I did play on a professional level, not for as long as I wanted to, but I'm glad that I managed to at least achieve that and experience that in my life.
And why did you end up leaving, and how did you handle that?
So I had a few head injuries. So I had 3 head fractures. The last one was it wasn't a fracture, actually, it was a concussion. There's 2 head fractures. The last one was a concussion. It was actually the worst one out of the other 2. And yeah, and then to be honest with you, I was also having, internal situations with the club, and then it was timing. There was, the touch points of my age, because I stopped playing. I played from 13 to 20. Then I stopped for a few years, more than a few, like 5 or 6 years. And then I signed a professional contract at 27. And then I played for Al-Ain Football Club professionally for half a season until I got my injury. But how I dealt with it, I mean, obviously through the head injury, you know, it does bring you down. It's post concussion, you get that experience anyway, that you know, touch of depression. But simultaneously, because of what I was going through and the amount of hard work I put in to get to where I was at and facing that, you know, it wasn't easy. But I'd say it was definitely a stepping stone of many stepping stones for me to get to where I'm at currently. I think there's many other experiences I've faced in my life that were much tougher to deal with. I think I dealt with the football experience much better than maybe other areas. But yeah, again, you know, they say hardship is a mother of growth. So, you know, I'm glad for anything that does come, no matter how hard it is. It doesn't get easy. It doesn't get easier. It's just being more aware of it.
Yeah.
You know, I guess if you get out of the football topic, I think, you know, I've also, you know, I'd say I've done things in my life that I'm not super proud of. You know, as much as I'm super proud of things that I have done, I'm very open to say that I've also done things that I'm not super proud of. And I think it's very important to, as a man, to acknowledge those things, to address those things, and then to kind of like try and manage and how you observe yourself through, you know, that cycle. You know, is it happening again? How are you reacting? How are you controlling yourself? And yeah, I feel like I'm definitely going upwards with obviously a bit of a, you know, it's not as we have to just try and make it more sustainable. So if you look at it like a stock market, for example, and your life experience, it's up and down, especially with your mental state, you try and want to keep it less volatile, you know, try and make it sustainable. You can have no control for it to drop down. You will drop down, but sustain it, observe it, love that bit, you know. So, you know, no matter how, you know, I can sit in front of you and tell you, you know, I've gone and done a yoga teacher training. I went to Thailand for 2 months, and, you know, I'm not going to sit back and say I'm all enlightened and I'm all knowing and all that. Not at all. I mean, it's a daily practice. It's every day you learn more and more about yourself. And I think, you know, I'm proud of where I've reached. Yeah, although I still have flaws and I still have areas that I need work and I need to improve in, but I'm ready for them. And you know, I'm just trying to be the best version of a man that I can be for myself, and then of course following through to the people that matter most to me, and then the rest of the world.
Do you ever feel there's a lot of coverage of the post-concussion syndrome in the United States? Do you ever feel that you have lasting impacts from that? Do you sometimes wonder if mood issues are related?
No, I wouldn't necessarily say it was that kind of impact. The impact I would say I probably did have was probably a bit of a memory. I did lose a bit of memory, but I think also at the same time, I do have to like check myself. Maybe I do have ADHD, or, you know, as we all do at some level. So, but no, thankfully, no. I didn't.
Okay, so we'll go back to yoga, we'll go back to the other things, but let's just talk about Hijack for a moment, because that's why I'm here in front of you, which is wonderful. And I watched it and loved it. And
I've got my shirt from planes for today. I don't know if you noticed.
It's a plane pattern. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So I'm curious, when you're at a project of that level with that popularity, like I think it's still the #1 show on Apple, how does that change your life? Because you were front and center in those first episodes.
Yeah. To be honest with you, look, like I've done film work before, and you know, I love being on set. And every time you do something you love to do, naturally you kind of like enjoy doing it, so you don't feel as pressured. With Hijack, obviously, with it being Hijack, Apple original series, Idris Elba, it was definitely like, a bit nerve-wracking at first, but I think, you once you get to set and they treat you as an equal, and you start to realize, like, hang on a second, you are worthy of being here, and that is why you are here, and then you just kind of like, it's very important to have the right people around you and everything that you do. And I think on the Hijack set, we were very fortunate to have an amazing team, all on in every angle of the production. Everyone was very supportive, made you feel very relaxed, and gave you the freedom to be able to express on the set and in the scenes. And it was an amazing experience, to be honest with you. And I'm very grateful to be able to be a part of that, and especially represent, Emirati actors on an international scale at that level. And I just think this just goes to show, I am one of many talents that exist in this region that are fully worthy and deserving of these international opportunities. I just think we need to find a way in the industry here to, extract that talent and try and send them overseas. Possibly, maybe even, like, there's plenty of hit movies, Hollywood, coming in and being shot in the UAE, for example, the Mission Impossible and many others. And I think, there should be some sort of kind of, rule that, like, if any international film gets shot in this part of in the UAE, then there needs to be some local talent hired, kind of like an Emiratization thing, just so. And I think it's a mutual benefit, to be honest with you, because I think first of all, you're gonna, have the benefit for the Emirati to be part of a production like that and extract the experience, but then you're gonna get the authenticity for the Emirati and for the, the international crew being here to. There's a lot of touch points when you have somebody from the actual region that can help you, and it makes a huge difference. The authenticity makes a huge difference. You get like one Emirati guy watching a show, and you see that it kind of like bridges loyalty and then wants you to be like, I want to watch that again. That person went the extra mile to make sure that our culture, our ways, was fed into that scene or story. And I think whether it's an Arab story, whatever the story is, I think it's authenticity is so important, because it then teaches you cultures, right? And that's what life is about. That's what film is. It's sharing stories.
Well, that was one of the things about Hijack that was neat, right? There's having lived here, it's sort of like my mom was a nurse and she hated watching medical shows because she'd say there's never 6 people with a stretcher running, so the world just gets a different sort of wrong impression. And Hijack, it felt like there wasn't anything that jumped out at me that I thought. Yeah. If I'm listening to you, you grew up acting in your brother's films, you've acted professionally in your brother's films. But if I'm hearing you, I just heard at the beginning you struggled a little bit with something many of us struggle with, imposter syndrome. Did you have a little bit of that? When you were on Hijack, did you have a little bit of imposter? Because it sounds like you were a little bit unsure, and then it was such a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, when you get on, it kind of happened to me even with football, to be honest with you. When I stopped playing for 5 years, and then I re-signed a professional contract, and then I'm on a private plane now flying, and my teammate is the, Sweden #9 World Cup striker. It's a similar feeling, but as soon as you get on the field, just as soon as you get on set, like I said, you have the right people around you, you have the right team, you have the right support system. Naturally, everything falls into place, and then you just perform. You're ready to, do your show. Yeah.
Okay, one thing about your character in that show that I loved was he just had this spidey sense that something was going on, even though everyone around him didn't want that thing to be going on. And we've all been in the job where something's happening that's going to take you out of your regular day, and it's going to be a whole big thing, and no one wants it. So your character had that spidey sense. That intuition? You obviously have that. How do you foster it? How does it play out in your life? Have you always paid attention to it?
Depends on what. So, if your intuition is telling you something that you don't really want to hear, and that's actually the very challenging part about listening to your intuition or your gut, is that, like, sometimes you feel it and you follow through, and sometimes it's easier because it's not something that carries a weight in your life. But then sometimes your intuition can tell you to do something you don't necessarily, or make you feel a way that you don't necessarily want to, do. And that's where you kind of pull yourself out of that bubble and observe your behavior. And then again, I mean, you could listen to that intuition or you can ignore it, but it will keep coming back and reminding you of what needs to be done. And unless, of course, there needs to be a significant change within that narrative or whatever the situation is. But it's very interesting. I think I've reached a stage in my life when it comes to a mental state, is that I'm way more observant. I'm way more accepting. I'm way more accountable. Not perfect. No one is. And we always say that as a cliche, but in reality, nobody wants to hear criticism. And I can tell you till today, I don't like to hear criticism. But when I do hear it, I do take the time to sit back and, digest it. And if I, for example, do something wrong, I'm, I remove kind of like my ego or pride. And I think that's very important. And I become that apologetic very quickly. And I feel like, life does become a bit lighter, smoother when you're more accepting of your own flaws, and I think more apologetic to the wrongs that you may have done to others, or even to yourself, really. But yeah, it's a very interesting journey when you start to observe rather than just live without actually watching what you're doing. Because a lot of people just live life and I watch it. I did for a long time, and I think that experience kind of, over time kind of darkened my soul, I'd say. And like, I didn't feel any growth. I didn't feel any purpose. And I just think I was just diving into a deeper and deeper and deeper hole, which then, made me wake up at some point and realize that things needed to change. And yeah, I fell into depression about 3.5 years ago. And yeah, it was interesting at the time. And, it was based on an experience that happened in my life. And I can say it was, again, I'll take full accountability for whatever did come into my life. And I think your own behavior kind of does reflect on what ends up coming in. But then also there are times where you can be behaving in a, graceful, beautiful, honest way, but life still will come and test you. And that's what's, so interesting about life. But yeah, when that did happen, I just had to make a decision to make a change. And the first and foremost thing that I did do was, get into the element, get into the zone of starting with looking after yourself, which is training. Wake up early, get closer to your faith, But I started doing yoga every morning at 7 a.m. And yoga just slowly pulled me out of that dark state. And I thought, outside of my business activities and all the other things that I do, I thought, what else can I do in my life that adds the same value that yoga had given me in my life, which was a tremendous value. And the only answer was to learn how to teach. So yeah, I flew to Thailand. And I had an experience of a lifetime doing my teacher training in Koh Phangan, the island of Koh Phangan. I was there for 2 months. And yeah, that's another story. We can dive in that for like a while.
It sounds to me like you were living a bit of an unaware life, and you weren't. A lot of people struggle with the job of taking responsibility for ourselves.
Yeah.
And people think they're taking responsibility for themselves because they're going to the gym and they're seeing their families and they're working. It's like you had this crash and then you realize I need to take responsibility for every aspect of myself. Do you have to have a hard thing happen to you to get this? Do you have to struggle with mental health? And when you started doing those building blocks, like you mentioned, those building blocks, that pulled you out of the depression. And that, it's not that you don't start to veer down again if life happens to you, but those core building blocks. Yeah.
It's a very good question, but I think, I think that's why, we grow up with parents, we grow up with siblings, we grow up with teachers, we grow up with, people that are there to show us and, teach us, and, and everybody has their own journey in life at the end of the day. So like some people would, listen and follow what they've been told, and some people would need to experience it themselves. And I guess I did a bit of both, but in some areas in my life, I guess I had to learn the hard way, and kind of learn for myself, which I do think is also very valuable. But that doesn't mean that this is the only way for you to,
Mm-hmm.
That's my way, and another person can learn another way, vice versa. But yeah, to cut a long story short, I think, that journey that I had gone through, basically just the hardship that I had gone through, I think when I look back at it now, I remember in that recent period, I was very much like pointing fingers and still self-aware of, what I was responsible of, but I was more pointing fingers to it. But I feel like the more you sit back and be accountable, the more you can be at peace with yourself, because the only thing that you can control in your life is you, and you can't control anything else. So once you become accountable for you, that is the only time you can accept and grow you or change you for the better. If you sit back and start pointing fingers, you're just going to sit in the same seat and potentially rot and not have that opportunity to, get onto that next level, get onto that growth. And the only way you can grow is by, accepting, taking accountability, knowing you're not perfect, being open to speaking about it, and observing your next steps way more, consciously, which is what's happening now. And again, I won't sit back and say I'm perfect. I have my ups and downs, but I'm very happy and proud to say that I am better than where I was, and I hopefully will be better tomorrow and every day after.
Well, it's interesting to hear you talk about, because these are buzzwords right now, victim consciousness, when you're sitting in a sort of victim mentality. And it sounds like you were, even though you didn't think you were. And I think a lot of people don't think that they are, but they are. I fall into it myself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's neat to hear you say, sort of like, pull yourself out of it, and you can sometimes veer back in.
Mm-hmm.
What's your top advice to someone who's struggling with their mental health now? A guy who's struggling with their mental health. It's hard for you guys to talk about.
I mean, again, like I said, there's so many different aspects of life of where your mental health can be affected. And I think if you can kind of just, steer yourself to the present moment and be grateful for the little things in life, which are in fact the largest, your existence, the miracle that you are, how you are even existing in this earth, how you became a human. And just count the blessings, your family, who you have in your family. Some people don't have family, so let's say your friends. There is always something to be grateful for. So at least maybe start off with putting yourself in the present, count those moments. And I think having that battle with acceptance is the hard part, whether it's accepting, losing a partner, or losing a dream, or losing a job, or being financially in a difficult position, or whatever it means, whatever the situation is. I think that battle with acceptance, you should just try and be very gentle with yourself. I think it's very important. And observe your thoughts much more consciously, in the sense that, know when you're bringing yourself down, because life is going to bring you down, and the outer forces of people, experiences, etc., is going to pull you down. And you are the only thing that is permanent in your life, and you're the only thing that can control whether you are up or down. So just try and be gentle with yourself, and look after your heart, look after your mind, and play that game. Like it's almost like a game, like where you're fine tuning yourself. It's okay that you messed up. It's okay that you've lost your job or your relationship. It's okay. And there's no really right or wrong. You want to go and work for it, go for it with the cleanest and best of intention, by all means, and if not, be accepting of it. And, and like I said, there's so many different aspects and experiences to how your mind can be affected. But I think, first and foremost, pull yourself to the present, count your blessings, and be gentle with yourself. Be conscious of how you speak to yourself. Talk to yourself a little better, a little differently, day by day, and you'll start to feel the difference. And you will talk to yourself, even though you speak to yourself and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to start speaking to myself better, or differently. There's going to be the time where your mind is so powerful, it can literally make you fly or bury you on the ground. And I think, just be observant of the strength of that mind that you have, and don't let it just go astray. Don't do actions just based on doing an action, and know the aftermath of that action and the energy you might receive based on the action you do, whether it be for yourself or the other person involved. So I think just try and live a clean, happy, good life, and be gentle with your heart, with your mind. Be grateful, keep yourself in the present, and just aspire, I guess, for growth. And that's what I'm trying to do anyway. I'm not a specialist, but I'm trying.
And yoga, a lot of guys, they're like, no, yoga is so, you know what they say about yoga. How can you encourage more men to do yoga, to get actually to the studio and get inside and try?
To be honest with you, like, that's actually another point that, like, when I went to teach yoga, obviously it was to add the same value that yoga added to my life for others, but also it was kind of like, I like to kind of like push boundaries, and I want to kind of like change the conversation on men doing yoga, teaching yoga, or yoga being looked at as a religion. And I think, the market here in Dubai is actually, it's growing. There's a great yoga community. It's very strong. And there's a lot of, it's picking up. You start to see more and more men coming to the classes, even Emiratis, where initially you didn't see as many. But I think how you would get them to come, I guess, probably by going yourself. First and foremost, like, you go yourself and you be committed to it, and then they will naturally be like, hey, like, if he's going that much, it's got to be good, And then you kind of like automatically, you influence yourself, and that energy will kind of like almost influence others to do better for themselves. So I think, start from doing it for you, and then people will observe that and say, hey, I'm influenced and I'd like to try it out. Doesn't mean yoga is for everybody, but it worked for me. And some people have different moves and coping mechanisms, but yoga helped me a lot, and I highly recommend it to anybody and everyone, all ages, fitness levels. There's always that excuse where it's like, I am not flexible enough. And I used to play football. I'm still not. I teach yoga. I'm still not that flexible, but it does build a lot of physical strength. It builds peace in the mind, teaches you how to breathe. It teaches you a bit more on life and being more conscious. And that's what I like about it a lot. I love that it's not a competition and it's you and your mat. It's not like a sport. And that's how I actually structure my classes. So my class is actually called the Journey Flow, because we're all on our own journeys in life, but we all have similar qualities we can work on to live a more content, happy, peaceful life. And for example, the qualities that we share. So you're on your own journey, I'm on my own journey, but we share qualities we need to work on a daily: being more forgiving, being more present, awareness of self-love, being more grateful, being gentle with yourself, absorb how you absorb energy, embracing change, all these experiences that we share that, and we need to work on. So every class is based off one of these qualities, and every quality has a poem dedicated that I write for the class, and then we do like a guided meditation on, say, forgiveness, with like soft shavasana, music, relaxing music, and then as soon as that stops, kind of like slowly wake up, volume goes down, put the volume back up, and then I get into a deep house music, which it becomes very energetic, nice, fun music to like move to in a heated room. None of my classes are the same sequence. I never write my sequences. It's always in the moment. I flow. So as I flow, you're flowing with me in the moment, which I actually really like. And then yeah, towards the end we do the normal class that you would expect, but it's a bit more boot campy and a bit more fast paced. And then towards the end in Shavasana, which is the corpse pose or surrender pose, is where I then deliver the poem on whatever the theme is. And then, then you come up and we do like a guided meditation. And then on the wrap up, I ask everyone and myself, it's kind of like a therapy for me too at the same time. So it's like I ask everyone and myself to be grateful for the little things that are the largest, being more aware that you're the only thing permanent in your life, and certain important, touch points that we should be more aware of on our day-to-day. And then I say, thank you everyone for coming in. My name is Mohammed Mustafa. Welcome to the Journey Flow. Salam alaikum. and I kind of changed the namaste to salam alaikum because I like to kind of, again, like share, the things in my culture and where I come from. And, you get a lot of people go, alaikum salam, and then they bow down. And it's a beautiful experience, honestly. I love doing it. I've taught about, it might not be much to others, but for me, I just did my 107th class recently. So it's been going on, and I'm looking to doing way more.
And these poems, you're a poet, these poems come to you.
Yeah.
They almost come from somewhere else through you. Can you describe that process?
Yeah, it's very random. Like and the way they get written is literally, I don't take time on them. They're just, I'm going through a certain experience in my life. Say, I don't know, let's say lessons. So I went through an experience a few weeks ago, and the idea of what did I learn from that experience kept consuming my mind. So I would think a lot about it and how that I need to learn from that experience. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to write something on lessons. So then I just pull out my phone, AirPods in, Shavasana, soft music, just to get into the zone. And then I just go. I don't know what the angle is, but within 5 minutes, it's done. And then I'm ready to then give it to the class. Sometimes in the parking, if I'm in the class and I'm like, okay, they've heard all of this, what should I do? And I just kind of feel like, how am I feeling today? Did I have based on how I'm feeling, do I have something written about that? No. Again, we share these qualities, right? These experiences we all share. We have our own journeys, but the qualities that we need to work on are the same. That's what's beautiful about us and human beings, and the differences in our journeys and how we share knowledge and experiences differently, but they're basically the same, but different. And then people absorb different information differently. How some people are compatible to one and others aren't. And, and you have to be grateful for the differences as well, and enjoy life as that, the beauty of how different everything is, how boring would it be if it just stayed up? I guess we wouldn't be grateful. We wouldn't be appreciative. We would just be brats, I guess. I don't know.
We'd all be brats.
But yeah.
So what, I could talk to you all day, but I have two more questions.
Sure.
One is, you're an entrepreneur, you're involved in venture capital. There's a lot of people who are very confused about finance in the world. And I'm just wondering if you have any lessons you've taken away from your experience in that might be implementable.
When it comes to, fundraising, so if you're doing VC, PE, you're mainly, dealing with investors, raising funds, sharing deal flow, sharing knowledge. getting into different communities, and I think is it depends again if you're an introvert, extrovert. Obviously, if you're an extrovert, it helps. If you're introvert, doesn't necessarily mean you can't. You can. It's all to do with dealing with people, but I think you need to be ready to know that you don't know everything. So don't sit in a meeting trying to boast about everything you do know. Be very genuine and honest about what the product is and what your level of knowledge is, and that you're learning. People admire that. They appreciate that honesty rather than you trying to throw big words in that potentially don't make any sense. I think also if you're dealing with an investor, I think it's very important to know that no doesn't mean no forever. It means no for now, which means always keep the investor posted on the growth. Never think that, okay, he's not coming in on this round and that's it. I'm not gonna, or have that ego attachment that, because I gotta know. It's a very dangerous place to be, because that investor could be on the next round or the round after. Your support for your growth for every round, and he could be not just assisting you with capital growth, but as well as strategic growth, which is, I think that's another point. I think also if you are dealing in investments in PE, VC, I think capital is everywhere, and you can burn money in a week. But what's more valuable is smart money, strategic investors, and just got to be a bit smart of who you want to partner with. Don't partner with anybody, just because you're getting money. So yeah, I guess those are a few points.
I think that's really applicable, because you've just said, be curious, focus on relationships, watch who you partner with. I mean, that can apply at any level.
Yeah.
That's in your personal finance as well. Okay, so will we be seeing you in other productions, or is that a part of your life you want to pursue? What are you doing next?
Well, to be honest with you, I've been in contact with a few agents in LA. I have my agent in London at the moment. There's a lot of film work coming into this region: Saudi, Dubai, and there's potential areas where I could start producing, not just acting, or producing and acting, or co-producing. And there are a couple of roles potential in line, nothing I can talk about or confirm. But yeah, it's exciting. I mean, my day-to-day is, adding any kind of value to my family business, which is my great-grandfather's legacy. And for me, just that's something that puts my mind at peace on a day-to-day. But if I can then do that, continue teaching yoga, and as I feed I wouldn't call them clients, but the guys and girls that are practicing with me, we automatically share a beautiful experience together, and hopefully pull out something nice from that class, and where someone could grow or feel better physically or mentally. And yeah, I actually just set up another business last week. It's called The Element. So it's called The Element, Get in Your Zone, and it's basically fitness boot camps all over Dubai, training. So there's going to be yoga, but mainly body weight training. I started with my partner James in Copenhagen. I tried his classes there, and he moved to Dubai, so I set it up here. And the idea around The Element was, everything revolves around you being in your element. Your element meaning, so even when we're going to be, our sign, or thing is, when we take pictures with the groups, it's going to be like that. So it's like, you're flexing your bicep,
pointing to your head.
You're pointing to your head, your element. And the whole idea there is just to make the right conscious decisions every day for you to feel better by training, eat better, behave better with yourself and with people in your life, and yeah, just to be in that element. And hopefully we're going to be doing as well as a loyalty program. So when you do become a full member, you start getting discounts at places where that basically are supposed to feed you a healthier, better life, which would be whether it's meal plans, whether it's meditation or yoga, whether it's certain books that you could read, or recovery. There's for IV drip recovery, ice baths. So we're gonna have that, but we're launching that hopefully in the next 2 weeks. So I'm looking forward to that.
Great. We'll look out for it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.